Hello, here is my presentation on John Watson. So to start out, a little bit about his background. He was born January of 1878 in South Carolina. As a child, he did not succeed academically. He actually got into fights as a child. Pickens Butler, which is John Watson's father, he left them because he was an alcoholic, and he actually left them heartbroken and left to poverty. Emma, John's mother, sold their family farm, pulled some strings, and then got John Watson into a Furman University at only 16 years old. In 1899, John graduated with his master's degree and set to pursue a doctorate degree at the University of Chicago. In 1903, he finished his doctorate degree and accepted a job at Johns Hopkins University as chair of the psychology department. He actually did stay at the University of Chicago and worked there for a while before getting offered a job at Johns Hopkins University. He married Mary Watson, and they had two children, Mary and John, which is kind of funny because her name is Mary, his name is John, so they just named their two children after one another. In 1915, he served as the president of the APA, the American Psychological Association. John had an affair with one of his students, Rosalie Raynard. He was asked to step down from his position at Johns Hopkins University in 1920 because of this affair that he had with his student, and then he later went into advertising business after that. Some more biography. Rosalie, which was his second wife, and John got married and had two children, William and James. They raised their children based on their strict behaviorist beliefs. So some of these beliefs were no coddling or nurturing because John believed it would bring in practical beliefs about the real world. And a mother's love was seen as a dangerous instrument that can leave permanent wounds. Rosalie actually had really controversial thoughts and feelings about this because she found herself wanting to nurture her children but felt forced not to because of John's beliefs. Rosalie did end up dying in 1935. John had an increasingly poor relationship with his children. Unfortunately, both William and James attempted suicide, and William was successful. A lot of people believe that John and Rosalie's attempts at raising their children with behaviorist beliefs was unsuccessful because of his poor relationship with his children and because both of their children decided to try and commit suicide. So John spent the later years of his life on an isolated farm in Connecticut. This is one of John's most famous quotes: "Give me a dozen healthy infants, well-informed, and my own specific world to bring them up in, and I'll guarantee to take anyone at random and train him to become any type of specialist I might select. Doctor, lawyer, artist, merchant chief, and yes, even beggarman and thief, regardless of his talents, penchants, tendencies, abilities, vocations, and race of his ancestors. I'm going beyond my facts, and I admit it. But so have the advocates of the contrary, and they have been doing it for many thousands of years." Some of Watson's work. He researched animal psychology at Johns Hopkins University. He was the first one to express any interest in behavioral psychology. Watson believed that psychology should be rooted in behaviors rather than internal thoughts and feelings. In the 1920s and 30s, behaviorism became increasingly popular, and by the 1950s, it started to die down. Watson was considered the father of behaviorism, and in 1914, Watson published Behavior: An Introduction to Comparative Psychology. The famous Little Albert experiment. This experiment was done by Watson and Raynard. It is extremely controversial for many reasons. This experiment attempted to condition little Albert, this 11-month-old baby, to fear a white rat by banging a pipe every time he saw the white rat. They ended up doing this with various objects. They did a white bunny, a white beard, many things. And whenever little Albert saw the rat, the conditioned response occurred, which was fear. So eventually, after he would see the white rat, they would bang on a pipe. He would see the white rat, they would bang on a pipe. And then after they showed the white rat, he would start to react as if the pipe had been hit, even if it wasn't. some more on Watson's work. Ethical guidelines were put in place because of this very controversial experiment with a little baby. In 1915, Watson was the president of the APA and received awards of the highest honor in 1957 for his work. So obviously years later, they appreciated it and gave him awards for his work as president of the APA. In 1919, he published a book titled Psychology from the Standpoint of a Behaviorist. In Watson's work, he only really saw benefits of studying overt events instead of covert events. His disregard for thoughts or feelings is one of his biggest criticisms, and many people don't take his work seriously because of it. He did publish another piece in 1928 titled Psychological Care of Infant Child, and he also made contributions to advertising after he was asked to step down at Johns Hopkins University. There's obviously a lot of work that Watson did throughout his lifetime, but these are kind of the main points that I wanted to point on for this presentation. So for his contributions to psychology, he made many contributions, especially to behavior modification. This concept, behavior modification, uses conditioning to change unwanted behaviors in people. Also, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, combines Watson's behaviors views with internal thoughts and feelings to create a successful method of therapy. So, obviously, he wanted to focus on behaviors, including his ideas on behaviors, along with actually taking people's internal thoughts and feelings into consideration, made a very successful method of therapy. He did teach people about conditioning through the Little Albert experiment, although it is still very controversial. And because of his controversies with this experiment, the IRB, Institutional Review Board, was created to protect the participants of experiments. So this is like debriefing after the experiment and just ensuring before the experiment that the participant knows what they're getting themselves into, and obviously children need to have permission from their parents, all of that. So because of his controversies, there were ethical guidelines put into place, which is wonderful. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. And I really hope you guys just have a great rest of the semester and a wonderful summer.